At the beginning of the film, we observe Natalie, who is leisurely walking and talking with her friend. Not so long ago, the woman inherited an Italian restaurant from her mother. However, Natalie realizes that things are not going very well in it, because people are satiated with absolutely everything. At the same time, Nick walks through this park. The architect spends time with his mother, who intends to help him find a girl. However, Nick, who has gone through a difficult parting with Jessie, and is not very happy about such an idea, the woman still insists that it's time for her son to find a life partner. Meanwhile, Natalie continues to socialize with her friend. For the sake of the restaurant's well-being, Charla advises the woman to change some things that are no longer useful. Nick's mom, meanwhile, notices his classmate in the park. Lori was in love with the architect, and now happily takes his business card. When the classmate leaves, Nick grudgingly tells his mother that he doesn't believe in such random coincidences. Soon, the architect sees his nieces and suggests that they throw a coin into a fountain that grants wishes. At the same moment, Natalie also throws a coin that she had left over from buying flowers for the restaurant. Nick's coin falls on the woman's coin, after which they both strangely freeze for a couple of seconds. Natalie goes to work with her friend, where they eagerly await the Italian chef. The man turns out to be dazzlingly handsome and immediately charms Charla. However, the chef himself can't take his eyes off Natalie. Meanwhile, Nick also gets to work and chats with his colleague about a new project. The architect also says that at the fountain, he made a wish to win the Green Bridge Prize. A colleague advises him not to shout about it too much, so the management won't find out. Nick's mom turns up with food at lunchtime and convinces her son to go on a date with Lori. In the evening, Natalie once again expects a lot of guests. However, they turn out to be too few. Even the cook notices this, and also has a quarrel with one of the visitors over garlic in the sauce. Late in the evening, Nick returns to his flat, where no one is waiting for him. The architect sits down in front of the television and watches a program about flamingos. Natalie also closes the restaurant, sadly looking at pictures of her mother before leaving. At home, the woman listens to her voicemail and then decides to deal with the paperwork on the restaurant. Soon, however, both the architect and Natalie herself fall asleep right on the couches. In the dream, the couple find themselves right next to a fountain of desire. The woman has the feeling that she has already seen Nick somewhere, and he seems to know her for a long time. The architect notices a gift box on the fountain and gives it to Natalie. Inside is a photo of Natalie's mother. The woman looks up and asks Nick who he is and why he is here. However, the architect responds by saying that Natalie is very beautiful. In the dream, Nick touches the woman's shoulder, after which they both wake up. The next day, Natalie tells her friend about the dream and mentions that it was very realistic. Nick, on the other hand, goes to work, where he is once again working on his design for a competition. A colleague again helps the architect and reminds him that personal projects during work can even get him fired. Meanwhile, Natalie is cooking a tiramisu, to which, according to a family recipe, she adds limoncello. The chef appears horrified by this decision. The Italian asks Natalie not to spoil the desserts, but to make something together. Charla remarks that the chef has not suggested such a thing to her. In the evening, the restaurant fills up with guests, and Natalie even manages to get 2 new clients. At the same time, the architect sees Lori. The classmate is literally obsessed with Nick and constantly hints that she is still fond of him. Lori constantly reminisces about her school days. When saying goodbye, the girl admits that she has already changed her status and wrote in it that she is dating Nick. The architect advises deleting it because it's not true. Nick also reveals that he recently ended a rather long relationship and doesn't want to enter a new one yet. Meanwhile, Natalie realizes that the cook liked her, but this confuses her rather than pleases her. At home, the woman goes to bed almost immediately and falls into a marvelous dream where she stands on the roof of a skyscraper. Nick soon appears in the dream and asks her to be careful. Natalie reassures the architect and says nothing will happen to her. The woman learns that Nick is designing a bridge, which immediately takes shape in her dream. Natalie responds by treating the architect to a biscuit and tells him about her restaurant, which she inherited from her mother. Afterwards, the couple tries to kiss, but fall down, not only in the dream, but also in life. Natalie thinks about this dream all day and even opens a dream book. In the evening, the woman tells Charla that she is sometimes happier in dreams with this mysterious guy than in life. Before going to bed, both Natalie and the architect prepare as carefully as if they were going on a date. Nick smiles dreamily before closing his eyes. This afternoon, the architect even told his mother about the mysterious beauty he can only see in his dreams. Finally, the couple falls asleep and find themselves in a snowy forest. At first, Natalie and the architect play snowballs and then find a gazebo where a candlelit dinner awaits them. Upon learning that Nick doesn't eat broccoli, the woman says that the man just hasn't tried them in her recipe. Instead of dinner, the couple decides to go for a walk in the magical forest. Natalie talks about her mother and how she was in hospital. The woman also talks about her doubts about the restaurant. Nick also advises her to put her own imprint on the place, add some things, and take some things away. The lovers spend almost the whole night together. Nick wakes up to the rays of the sun and feels very happy. Natalie goes to work, where she changes the music and also makes a new sign with a more pronounceable name. The woman admits that the changes were prompted by a dream. Meanwhile, Nick looks so elated and happy at work that his colleagues notice it. Suddenly, the working atmosphere is interrupted by a call from Jessa. Nick doesn't want to answer and says that his relationship with her is in the past. In the evening, Natalie gets ready for bed again, hoping for a pleasant meeting. Nick also goes to bed, but is interrupted by a phone call. The architect hurries to Jessa, who begged him to come. It turns out that the ex-girlfriend has been disturbed by a mouse. When Nick copes with it, Jessa asks him not to leave and suggests they stay alone. Natalie, meanwhile, falls asleep with a smile, anticipating a meeting with her beautiful man. The woman has no idea that Nick has decided to spend this night in the arms of his ex-girlfriend, who betrayed him. In her dream, Natalie wanders through the forest for a long time, hoping that the architect is about to appear. However, Nick didn't appear. In the morning, Natalie wakes up rather dejected and decides that it is time for her to live a real life. She decides to ask the chef out on a date after work. Meanwhile, Nick at work takes another call from his ex-girlfriend and says he doesn't want to continue his relationship with her. The architect is summoned to his superiors, where he is reprimanded for unauthorized design and sending the work to a competition. Natalie, on the other hand, goes on a date to a club in the evening. The woman feels uncomfortable with the cook and realizes that he is not at all suitable for her. While Natalie is learning to dance with the Italian, the architect tries unsuccessfully to find her in his dream. The next day, Nick has a conversation with his colleague. The architect thinks it's bad to live in dreams, so he decides to meet Jessa again. Together with his ex-girlfriend, Nick goes to a new Italian restaurant, not knowing that its owner is the one he is dreaming about for several nights in a row. Natalie, meanwhile, discusses with her friend the idea of inviting a restaurant critic to their opening. During dinner, Jessa interferes with the architect's drawing and asks him to pay more attention to her. The girl is unhappy that Nick wants to quit his job, and besides, she is participating in a contest that pays almost nothing if she wins. The architect realizes that Jessa doesn't believe in his success, and this depresses him. Nick finishes dinner and leaves the restaurant, forgetting his drawings. Natalie soon finds them and is at a loss for words. The paper depicts the very bridge she saw in her dream. Natalie goes to the fountain and sees a flower seller at the fountain. The woman tells her that, according to legend, the fountain has the power to unite lovers in a dream for 7 days. However, if they don't find each other in life during this time, the bond will dissolve, and they will never meet again. The saleswoman herself has also had dreams with a beautiful man, but has not found him. The woman advises Natalie to find a live boyfriend instead of being like her, an old maid who dreams of the guy from her dreams. At night, Natalie finally sees the architect, but it upsets her. The woman tells Nick about the 7 nights and the legend, but she doesn't believe they can find each other in the real world. Despite the affection, Natalie touches the architect to wake up. The woman realizes that with each encounter, she will find it harder and harder to break up with Nick. The architect realizes that he has to live in reality. Nick goes to his parents' anniversary with Jessa, and also decides to leave the company and start his own firm with his friend. Charla, meanwhile, invites a critic to dinner who can boost the popularity of Natalie's restaurant. Nick learns from his father about the legend of the wishing fountain. His parents advise the architect to look for his perfect girl, but the son refuses to chase his dreams and chooses a stable reality. At night, both Nick and Natalie work hard to stay awake and not see each other. The next day, the architect quits his job, intending to change his life completely. Jessa is shocked by these decisions and finds them unjustified. Natalie, meanwhile, opens a restaurant and waits for the restaurant critic who will decide the fate of her establishment. However, while working, the woman suddenly realizes that she must find Nick, or she will regret it for the rest of her life. The architect himself also runs away from the competition and goes to the fountain. From there, Nick runs into Italian restaurants and asks if the owner's name is Natalie. The woman herself goes to the architect competition. Natalie's restaurant receives high praise, and Nick wins the competition. Despite they constantly pass, the pair still meet at the fountain. Natalie decides to touch the architect to see if it's a dream. Afterwards, Nick kisses the woman, and they begin a happy relationship. This is the end of the film. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like, write in the comments what you think about this film, and see you in new videos.